us to have a resource or turning off the spigot as OPEC did in the 70s. When we are
The U.S. House coming in next to take up a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Also continued debate on 2012 spending. Live House coverage now here on C-SPAN.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Amen. Almighty God, grant your blessing to our land. Thank you for the freedoms that are ours as Americans. Help us to be mindful of the principles on which it was founded: freedom and equality, justice and humanity. Grant your blessings to the members of the United States House of Representatives, that they may serve our nation with honesty and integrity, and they may seek your guidance as they make these important decisions that affect us all. Protect all who serve in the armed forces of this land. Bless their families during times of military deployment, and give your peace to those whose loved ones have paid the ultimate price in the defense of liberty. Protect our nation from terrorist threat. Hear these prayers and grant us your peace, which passes all understanding. These things we pray in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
The Chair has examined the Journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House his approval thereof. And pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the Journal stands approved. A pledge of allegiance today will be led by the gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Donnelly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Without objection, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Johnson, is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor our guest chaplain, Pastor Marty Springer, who served as an example of both his faith and civic duty. Pastor Springer was raised in Southern California, the youngest son of Marshall and Doris Springer. After graduating from high school, he worked in a bank while attending junior college and joined the United States Air Force in December of 1982. During his time on active duty, he was selected for the honor of serving the Office of Presidential Protocol at Andrews Air Force Base during the presidency of President Reagan. He entered the Air Force Reserve in 1986 and also took a civil service position at Scott Air Force Base, where he's the Director of Personnel for an Air Force telecommunication agency responsible for all aspects of manpower, personnel, and training. And during Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield, Pastor was recalled to serve in active duty and received the Air Force Achievement Medal for his service. After 15 years of service to his nation, Pastor Springer was called to serve God and entered Concordia Seminary in St. Louis in 1997. After graduating, Pastor Springer was ordained as a pastor of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. In 2000, he received his first call to St. John Evangelical Lutheran Church and School in Chester, Illinois. His service to the church and his community, including his work as chairman of the Chester Veterans Memorial Committee, earned him the honor of Outstanding Citizen of Chester in 2001. Today, Pastor Springer serves as senior pastor of Trinity Lutheran Ministries of Edwardsville, Illinois, where he oversees a church, Christian day school, and daycare center. He's completed 3 missions trips to Kazakhstan, Haiti, and Honduras, and is working to complete his clinical pastoral education at Alexian Brothers Medical System in St. Louis, Missouri. Pastor Springer has been a model of service for his community, his church, and his nation, and it's truly my honor, Pastor, to join my colleagues in welcoming you as our guest chaplain. Privileged to represent you and privileged that you're here today.
Chair will entertain up to 15 further requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition? Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of a balanced budget amendment to our Constitution. For 24 years, I ran my own small business with my wife. We had to balance our budget every month and every year. I've also raised 3 boys with my wife, and we've had to balance our budget as a family in order to live within our means. I believe the United States Constitution is one of the greatest documents ever written, and I don't take amending it lightly. However, we must curb the voracious appetite of the federal government and get our fiscal house in order. We passed the $15 trillion mark in our national debt yesterday, and we are seeing other countries around the world succumb to their debt. We must fix our debt crisis before it's too late. I am proud to be a co-sponsor of this balanced budget amendment to our Constitution, and I urge all of my colleagues to vote in favor of House Joint Resolution 2. Our kids and grandkids are depending on it. Thank you. I yield back.
Time of the gentleman's expired. The gentleman from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Congress seems determined to undermine recent nutrition standards proposed by the Obama administration. It's shameful that we are poised to intervene to make sure that pizza continues to count as a vegetable and that we protect the privileged status of French fries on the lunch tray. The problem we have in front of us is the institution of vegetables has been weakened in this country, and the effort to redefine it on this vast social experiment that we have going on, redefining vegetables differently than it has ever been defined by mankind before. This effort of this vast social experiment, the early data that we see from other places, harms the institution of the family, the raising of the next generation, and is harmful to the future of the Republic.
Gentleman from Texas. Without objection.
You know, this month the national debt will reach the unprecedented level of $15 trillion. That's nearly $48,000 per American. Under President Obama, the national debt's increased faster than any other U.S. president in history. Now more than ever, it's time to get our nation's fiscal house in order to prevent another big fat Greek catastrophe. The American people have made it abundantly clear that Congress should balance the federal budget, just like families and business owners across the country have to do every single day. A balanced budget amendment's the solution we need to break Washington's reckless spending habit. I implore the President and my colleagues in the Senate to join the House in passing the balanced budget amendment and send it to the states. We can't endure this any longer, and we need to fix it. Americans want, need, and deserve to know we're going to live within our means just as they all live within their means.
Yield back. The gentlelady from Texas. Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to speak in strong opposition to cuts in Medicare and Social Security. In these last few days, and the most important days that we face, I challenge the Super Committee to put politics aside and to work together to come up with a balanced, bipartisan deal that will strengthen and preserve our nation's most successful health care and anti-poverty programs. Across-the-board cuts, which will result from the Super Committee's failure to work together, will do nothing more than increase health care costs for seniors and the disabled and weaken our already vulnerable economy. I have received countless phone calls, stacks of letters, boxes of cards from concerned constituents all over North Texas who wait in fear to hear the fate of their economic future. I urge the Super Committee to reject any policies that will result in higher costs for our nation's sick and elderly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
From New York. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, last week a constituent from Washingtonville, New York wrote this to me. I balance my family budget, so please explain to me why we don't have the will to balance the federal budget. Pass a balanced budget amendment, and future generations will be far better off. If not, we will have left them our errors. my constituent, his first name is Joseph. And Joseph, I want to assure you that I agree with you completely. These are my sons. This is my family. These are Will and Jack. And together, as our distinguished colleague from Texas just told us, they owe nearly $100,000 to the national debt as of today. They had no part at all in creating it. Every dollar that the federal government spends has 40 cents in debt. That is unconscionable intergenerational theft. It must stop, and we can stop it this week. I urge all of our colleagues across the aisle to pass the balanced budget amendment. And, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. The chair will remind members to direct their comments to the Speaker. Gentleman from Indiana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of the balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. The fact is, for too long, Washington has not made the necessary and tough decisions that need to be made to get our budget deficit under control. Working families in Indiana know all too well the importance of balancing their budgets, even when times are tight. Just as Hoosier families must make tough decisions about how to manage their budgets, so too must we in Congress make those same tough choices about where to invest and what to cut. I've always supported a balanced budget amendment because it is another important tool that can be used to help get our fiscal house in order. Having a balanced budget amendment in place is crucial to the country going beyond speaking about tough decisions and actually making them. I'm aware this will not be easy, and tough decisions that affect many people will have to be made to match our revenues and spending priorities. We have to live within our means. We are facing significant fiscal challenges, and the American people expect us to come together on a bipartisan basis and to do something that will more effectively deal with them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Just 1 minute revising.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, today we begin debate on H.J. Res. 2, the balanced budget amendment. This resolution is similar to the amendment that nearly passed the Congress over 15 years ago. I can only imagine how much improved our current fiscal situation would be today if the amendment would have passed then. In that time, we have seen the national debt increase from just over $5 trillion then to more than $15 trillion now. This rapid rise in public debt endangers our currency and creates deep economic uncertainty. For some of that time, we had a balanced budget, and we did it with a government divided between the political parties. It was not easy to negotiate, but we made it happen. We need to get back to balanced budgets and go further to pay down on our debt. Balanced budget amendment will require us to take that action. We cannot endlessly pile up debt. That is a recipe for disaster. We have to turn things around, and to help us accomplish that, we need a constitutional amendment ratified by the American people. I yield back.
Gentleman from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to 1 minute.
Without objection, so ordered.
This past week, I joined with Congressman Lloyd Doggett and many other Democratic colleagues to introduce the Emergency Unemployment Compensation Extension Act. If Congress fails to pass this bill by the end of the year, Americans who have lost their jobs without any fault of their own will begin losing their unemployment benefits in January, and by mid-February, 2.1 million will have lost their benefits, and by the end of 2012, 6 million will, and that includes 34,600 Tennesseans. Congress has never allowed emergency unemployment benefits to expire when the unemployment rate is anywhere close to what it is now, 9%. This extension not only will help the unemployed, but also will promote economic recovery. The Congressional Budget Office has declared that unemployment benefits are, quote, both timely and cost-effective in spurring economic activity and employment. The Economic Policy Institute has estimated that preventing UI benefits from expiring could prevent the loss of over 500,000 jobs. They are timely, targeted, and temporary, the best way to stimulate our economy. In addition, there are benefits for the states that are having problems with their unemployment insurance programs and with certain extensions there. I urge the Republicans to join with us in passing this Emergency Unemployment Compensation Extension Act and yield back the remainder of my time.
Time of the gentleman's expired. The gentleman from Colorado. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, the big spending policies of the Obama administration have failed America. Millions of Americans have lost their homes, their jobs, and even their hopes for a brighter future. Our economy is stalled. The American people are looking for solutions. This week, the House will vote on a balanced budget amendment. It is an honest and bipartisan solution to the problem of overspending that threatens our economic recovery and prevents job creation. 49 states, including Colorado, comply with a balanced budget amendment. Spending cuts, caps, and promises, though helpful, are only temporary. A balanced budget is permanent. When the federal government starts living within its means, the nation's job creators will have the confidence to create more jobs. That certainty is essential to restoring our economy and putting Americans back to work. In an otherwise bleak economy, a balanced budget amendment is our brightest ray of hope. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Georgia. Without objection.
My remarks. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our right to vote is under attack. Photo ID laws on the books in nearly a dozen states, including my home state of Georgia, and pending in 35, are most troubling. Proponents say state-issued photo ID laws prevent voter fraud, but voter fraud is in-person voting has not been a significant problem throughout the years. The problem has been too many people went to vote for President Obama. So an estimated 21 million people do not have a current government-issued photo ID. Numbers are even higher for blacks and Hispanics and other minorities. The Texas legislature passed one of the worst laws whereby a concealed weapon permit qualifies as a voter ID while a student ID does not. The Justice Department should vigorously challenge these voter ID laws. Nothing is more fundamental, ladies and gentlemen, than our right to vote. We must reject any attempts to curb citizens in the exercise of their right, and I yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Texas. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, today the House is scheduled to consider House Joint Resolution Number 2. This bill proposes a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. I am a very proud co-sponsor of this legislation. Earlier this year, the Texas legislature called on Congress to propose and submit to the states a balanced budget amendment. I am pleased that the House is taking the first step today to fulfill this request by Texas and other states. As a former city council member and mayor and state representative, I was always required to present a balanced budget. We must act now before we further ruin the economic futures of our children and grandchildren. We cannot ignore our fiscal situation any longer. The federal government should balance its budget. I strongly urge my colleagues to join me today in voting in favor of this resolution. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Minnesota.
Address the House for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker, to revise and extend.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 4 days since CBS News program 60 Minutes ran a troubling piece on insider trading in this very House. Mr. Speaker, you and I and our colleagues are the only people in this august body today that are exempt from insider trading rules. How do we expect the public to take us serious about anything we do when the belief that people here are enriching themselves at the knowledge they gain from the job? Even the perception of wrongdoing undermines the trust in the democracy. The good news is Ms. Slaughter, myself, and now 55 of our colleagues have joined together to put an end to this practice. The Stock Act that I rise and encourage my colleagues to join us on would stop trading on congressional knowledge. It would put Congress at the same playing field of every teacher, firefighter, small business owner, and investor. Then we can get down to the business of making America right, creating jobs. I encourage my colleagues to join me. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
A minute to address the House.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in favor of House Joint Resolution 2 and sending a balanced budget amendment to the United States Senate and to the respective states. Congress has nobly yet unsuccessfully tried 7 times to stop the increasingly massive growth in our national debt. At the first attempt in 1985 with Graham-Rudman-Hollings, our national debt was $2 trillion, or $8,700 for every American. Today, our national debt is $15 trillion, $48,500 for every American, higher than it has ever been in American history. Our current spending environment has failed to create jobs and is threatening our standard of living and our national security. While the Founding Fathers could not foresee a nation this stricken with debt, they did recognize the danger to our prosperity and instilled a constitutional process that gives us the flexibility to deal with this crisis. As Thomas Jefferson said, I place economy among the first and most important Republican virtues and public debt as the greatest of dangers to be feared. Congress has a rare opportunity to break the cycle of reckless spending that has taken us to this current fiscal breaking point and ensure the fiscal, financial stability and prosperity for our children and our grandchildren. I urge adoption of the resolution, and I yield back.
Gentlelady from California.
Speaker, I ask permission to address the House for 1 minute and revise
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to recognize the opening of Santa Barbara County's first Veteran Treatment Court. Last week, our country came together to remember and pay respect to our veterans, and I was humbled and honored to participate in memorial services honoring our veterans, 50,000 of whom live on California's Central Coast. Their sacrifice is never forgotten, just as our work to support them is never finished. And that's why I support this new and innovative collaboration treatment court in my congressional district, which will better serve our veterans, especially those struggling with substance abuse, mental health issues, or other disorders. This Veterans Court fills a critical gap in care for our veterans by helping former service members who are struggling and in pain. Mr. Speaker, it's our duty to serve those who have served us so gallantly. Our veterans have sacrificed and shown their unquestioning commitment to this country, and veterans treatment courts, like the one in Santa Maria, provide another straightforward way for us to better serve them. So I urge my colleagues to join me in recognizing Santa Barbara County for taking this critical step in supporting our veterans by establishing this Veteran Treatment Court. Now I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Mississippi. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, every month Americans sit down at kitchen tables or at computers to balance their checkbooks and bank accounts to ensure their spending doesn't overwhelm their way of living. I've been at that kitchen table for those discussions. Now the United States Congress is finally coming to the table to have a similar discussion with the American people. By passing a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, we tell the American people we are serious about putting our financial house in order. No longer will we overpromise and overspend at the expense of trillions of dollars in our children's future. This week I will stand with my colleagues to support a notion that seems foreign within the Beltway, that we cannot spend more than we take in. The fact that this is a radical concept in Washington, D.C. demonstrates just how out of touch this town has become and how far we have to go. By getting to where we need to be won't occur without the critical step we take this week to pass a balanced budget amendment. This action puts us in line toward economic recovery, sustainability, and above all else, with the needs and priorities of the American people. I urge my colleagues to support the balanced budget amendment. I yield back my time.
The time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask the unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and expend my remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to welcome ESPN's College Game Day to the campus of the University of Houston. This is the first time in history that the show that the University of Houston and the City of Houston has been given this honor. The University of Houston Cougars, led by Heisman hopeful Case Keenum, is highlighted game as the 10-0 Cougars face the SMU Mustangs this Saturday. The Cougars are pushed for an undefeated season, a potential at-large BCS Bowl opportunity. University of Houston has a long storied tradition of athletic success, including 55 NCAA individual championships, 17 NCAA team titles, 19 college football bowl appearances, 5 NCAA men's basketball Final Fours, and a trip to the College World Series. The University of Houston has Tier 1 research university distinction with Carnegie Foundation. University of Houston is one of the 3 Carnegie designated Tier 1 public research facilities in Texas. University of Houston is also known as a first-generation school for many of the students, the first in their families to attend college. Our undergraduates choose from 120 majors and minors. University of Houston offers 139 master's and 59 doctoral programs, 3 professional degrees. University of Houston is the second most ethnically diverse major research university in the United States. Students come from as many as 137 nations across the world. As a proud alumnus of the University of Houston, I salute the success of the academic and athletics programs and welcome ESPN to our campus today. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Washington. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, we've heard some of the partisan comments this morning, and I think America's tired of that. America needs jobs now, and they're looking at us to work together. There's been a lot of discussion and debate around job creation and economic recovery, rightly so. But I believe we all want to put America back to work, Democrats and Republicans together. We all want that. We must work together now to make that happen. Just because we have different ideas doesn't mean we can't work together. Adam Smith and I from Washington State, in fact, next week we'll be putting together a jobs fair that we call Helping Identify Real Jobs, Real Employment in America. We're going to do that together, a Democrat and a Republican. 75+ different vendors, different businesses who have jobs, actually have jobs waiting. We're going to match employees with employers, bring them together so they can find jobs. And our hope is that before Christmas, before Thanksgiving, Adam Smith and I can get some people back to work and energize their families, help energize our community. Mr. Speaker, I urge all of us in this House to do the same. Work together to identify jobs. I yield back.
Time of the gentleman's expired. The gentleman from Washington. Without objection.
Thank you. I rise in support of a bipartisan effort to create jobs. Just as Congressman Reichert said, he and I are hosting a job fair next week. At a time when unemployment is over 9% in this country, when our economy desperately needs to put people back to work, I think this is the way we need to do it, in a bipartisan manner. At the end of the day, we're not going to have any job creation bills that aren't bipartisan because of the nature of Congress. I applaud Congressman Reichert for working with me on this idea, and it's really a very good idea in terms of job creation. Yes, there's huge unemployment, but less well known is there are actually employers out there that have jobs that are trying to find people to fill them. Matching the skills necessary with those jobs is critical, and that's what the Hire Americans job fair that we're going to do next week in Kent is all about. Bringing in 75 employers that actually have jobs available with unemployed people looking for work to match them up to try to put people to work to get this economy moving again. It's a great idea. Again, I thank Congressman Reichert for working with me to do this. It's bipartisan, and it's focused on the #1 most important issue this country faces, getting Americans back to work and getting our economy moving. Thank you.
Gentleman from Kansas.
Rise to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was another landmark day in Washington's borrow and spend legacy. The national debt now stands at a staggering $15 trillion. This comes at a time when our economy is struggling, the unemployment rate is high, and Americans are tightening their belts and doing more with less. It remains clear that the Washington theory of borrowing and spending to create wealth and grow jobs simply is a fraud on the American people. Both political parties know that this staggering debt is a cancer on the future of our nation and something we can no longer ignore. I ask my colleagues to join together and save the future of this country, to stop the suffocating debt and spending. Let's pass a constitutional amendment that requires a balanced budget, that prohibits Congress from borrowing from the future, and let's pass a legacy of prosperity and wealth to the next generation.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentlelady from Florida.
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a growing problem across America involving identity theft and tax fraud. These new kind of criminals will steal Social Security numbers and then file for a tax return, a fraudulent tax return. The City of Tampa Police Department recently uncovered a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme, lost monies to the taxpayers. So Congressman Rich Nugent and I, Republican colleague from Florida, have been working together to tackle this problem. I intend to file a bill this week that would, one, give local law enforcement the tools it needs to be an effective participant with the IRS in these tax fraud investigations. Right now, federal law doesn't allow local law enforcement to be an active participant. And two, for folks that have their identities stolen, often months and months and months go by before the IRS is able to fix their return and their credit. And we've got to do that. It's leaving them hanging for months. So I encourage my colleagues to join in our efforts to tackle tax fraud and this criminal enterprise.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the Obama administration is serious about helping create jobs for the American people, then it should start by listening to America's job creators. House Republicans understand the importance of freeing our nation's businessmen and entrepreneurs from the confidence-killing threat of higher taxes and more regulation so that they can invest, grow, and hire again. This means protecting job creators from needless tax burdens. This means reforming federal spending. This means supporting a fairer, flatter, and simpler tax code. This means stopping job-killing regulations that constrain employers from hiring more workers. On each of these issues, House Republicans have already acted. Following our plan for America's job creators, we've passed more than 20 job creation bills so far this year. The path to new jobs has been paved by House Republicans. It's long past time for Senate Democrats and President Obama to follow our lead and enact these jobs bills. I yield back.
Time has expired. The gentlelady from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. In the past few days, many Americans have contacted me through Facebook and Twitter with their thoughts, and their message was very clear. They want jobs, and they want them now. On behalf of these Americans, I urge the leaders of the House to respond by passing major legislation that will create high-paying jobs. Well, they write to me, I hope you mean living wage jobs that are meaningful, filled with dignity, and generated locally. Job creation begins at home. Close the loopholes that send jobs overseas and make it tougher to bring the profits and products back here. An additional suggestion would be a Fund of Works Program administration modeled after the first one, implemented by Franklin Roosevelt, a New Deal for the new millennium. We need to stop the manufacturing drain going out of the country, to revisit the WPA, to jumpstart the economy, and to fix our aging infrastructure. Heck, we need someone to clean weeds out of the sidewalks. We need an energy policy, concrete plans to accelerate the use of renewables. Too much of our fuel costs end up in our trade imbalance, and these are the words from my constituents that I'm glad to share with you as we work very hard to get Americans back to work at meaningful jobs. Yield back.
Okay. Time of the gentlelady has expired. The chair lays before the House the following enrolled bill.
Senate 1412, an act to designate the facility of the United States Postal Service located at 462 Washington Street, Woburn, Massachusetts, as the Officer John McGuire Post Office.
What purpose does the gentlelady from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, by direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 467 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 92, House Resolution 467, resolved that upon adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to consider the conference report to accompany the bill, H.R. 2112, making appropriations for agriculture, rural development, food and drug administration, and related agencies' programs for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2012, and for other purposes. All points of order against the conference report and against its consideration are waived. The conference report shall be considered as read. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the conference report to its adoption without intervening motion except 1 hour of debate, and 2, 1 motion to recommit if applicable.
Gentlewoman from North Carolina is recognized for 1 hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to the gentlelady from New York, Mrs. Slaughter, pending which I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlelady is recognized.
During consideration of this resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
House Resolution 467 provides a closed rule providing for consideration of H.R. 2112, the Consolidated and Further Continuing Appropriations Act, also known as the minibus. Mr. Speaker, this conference report was approved by the Conference Committee on wide bipartisan basis, with all but one of 38 House and Senate conferees signing off on the report. The bill contains a continuing resolution to avoid a government shutdown and continue federal operations until December 16, 2011, or until Congress completes the remaining 9 FY 2012 appropriations bills. It is important to highlight that this CR is a clean extension and includes no new funding provisions. In accordance with the Budget Control Act, this conference report upholds the overall discretionary spending level of $1.043 trillion and includes $2.3 billion in disaster relief funding, which falls under the disaster designation cap set by the Act. The agriculture agencies and programs in this bill will receive a total of $136.6 billion in both discretionary and mandatory funding, a reduction of $4.6 billion from the President's request based on the administration's mid-session review. Discretionary funding in the legislation totals $19.8 billion, a reduction of $350 billion below last year's level, and a cut of $2.5 billion from the President's request. It is important to note that mandatory food and nutrition programs within the Department of Agriculture, including SNAP, also known as food stamps, as well as child nutrition, are funded at $98.6 billion. This funding will allow all individuals and families who meet the program's criteria for aid to receive all the benefits available to them, and includes $3 billion in reserve funds in case of unanticipated increases in participation or food price increases. Additionally, school lunch and school breakfast programs will receive $18.2 billion in mandatory funding in the agreement. This funding will help low-income students with free or reduced-price meals at schools in every community in the nation. The conference agreement includes provisions to prevent overly burdensome and costly regulations and provides greater flexibility for local school districts to improve the nutritional quality of meals in the national school lunch and school breakfast programs. Without these provisions, the cost of these important programs would balloon by an additional $7 billion over the next 5 years, leaving states and local school districts in the lurch. The WIC program is funded at $6.6 billion. This funding will provide supplemental foods as well as nutritional and other preventive health services to low-income participants. I am pleased to report that the bill places restrictions on the implementation of a Grain Inspection and Packers and Stockyards Administration GIPSA proposed rule that would have allowed harmful government interference in the private market for livestock and poultry. The Commerce, Justice, and Science section of the conference report includes a base total of $52.7 billion, a decrease of $583 million below last year's level, and a decrease of almost $5 billion below the President's request. The conference agreement includes numerous provisions that protect the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. 3 of these protections are made permanent law beginning in fiscal year 2012. These 3 provisions prohibit the Department of Justice from consolidating firearms sales records, electronically retrieving the records of former firearms dealers, and maintaining information on persons who have passed firearms background checks. The conference agreement also contains numerous 1-year firearms protections and new language prohibiting DOJ from requiring imported shotguns to meet a sporting purposes test. The bill extends important provisions related to Guantanamo Bay, including a prohibition on the transfer or release of any detainee into the U.S. and a prohibition on the acquisition or construction of any new prison to house detainees. Under no circumstances should we endanger our communities by allowing some of the most dangerous people in the world to set foot on American soil. The conference agreement includes important provisions to protect unborn human life, including a ban on abortion funding for federal prisoners and a conscience protection for prison employees, and a prohibition on the legal services corporation funds for organizations that engage in abortion-related litigation. The Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development section of the conference report includes a base total of $55.6 billion, representing a decrease of $19.4 billion below the President's request. The conference agreement provides $500 million for national infrastructure investments, commonly referred to as the Tiger program, and includes language prioritizing rail, highway, and transit projects that improve or expand existing systems. The conference agreement provides $39.9 billion for the Federal Highway Program, which is the annual spending level set by the latest Surface Transportation Extension Act. The agreement provides $1.66 billion for the Federal Highway Administration's Emergency Relief Program, which assists states in rebuilding federal highways that were damaged by major natural disasters such as Hurricane Irene and the flooding of the Missouri River. Included in the conference agreement is $12.5 billion for the FAA. The agreement provides $3.35 billion for airports and $2.7 billion for facilities and equipment. Language is included to restore the Block Aircraft Registry Request Program, or BAR, and to prohibit future changes to the program. Also included is $878 million for FAA Next Generation funding to ease congestion and reduce air traffic delays. The legislation includes a total of $37.3 billion for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, a decrease of $3.8 billion below last year's level and $4.7 billion below the President's request. The bill does not extend the increased maximum loan limits for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. These entities have been under public scrutiny for their questionable business practices and use of billions in federal bailout funds, some of which have been used for extravagant management bonuses. The bill does allow an increase in the conforming loan limits to the Federal Housing Authority, FHA, which is subject to greater congressional scrutiny and oversight. Mr. Speaker, I am appreciative of the members of the Conference Committee and cognizant of the tough jobs they had to get to this bipartisan agreement coming to the floor for consideration. It is for this reason I urge my colleagues to support the rule, and I reserve the balance of my time.
He reserves her time. The gentlelady from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for yielding me the customary 30 minutes and yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlelady's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, this is a sad day for the House of Representatives, another demonstration that the House has failed to meet its basic responsibility to the American people. The new budget year began over 6 weeks ago, but not a single routine appropriations bill, not a single one, has been enacted. Instead, we are considering a massive $100 billion hodgepodge of unrelated programs and agencies, all crammed into a single bill that no member of the House saw before this week. In fact, most of the provisions in this bill have never been considered by the House at any time in any form. Let me repeat that. A massive $100 billion bill, most of which has never been considered by the House, brought up for a single all-for-nothing vote under a completely closed process. And what's worse, we will be back here in a few weeks with another massive omnibus bill to keep the rest of the government open. As I said, Mr. Speaker, this is a sad day for the House. Fortunately, there is one hint of good news in this mess. The bill does reject some of the absurd cuts proposed on the other side of the aisle. For example, the bill does not contain the proposed cuts that would have denied 700,000 women, infants, and children valuable nutritional supplements or have defunded the COPS program. But those welcome steps are not enough to make this a good bill. I'm especially disturbed by the unwise and short-sighted cuts to programs important to America's role as a competitive global power. High-speed and inner-city passenger rail, for example, gets no funding under this agreement. The bill allows the country to maintain Amtrak at its current state, but does nothing to help us keep pace with countries like China and Germany, who have already built a rail infrastructure that will expand their economies well into the 21st century. If our country hopes to remain a global superpower in the 21st century, we have to do more to invest in our country than the meager steps that we are taking today. Especially in tough economic times like these, we need to rebuild our infrastructure, to be educating our children and creating jobs for the millions of unemployed, But instead of the Band-Aid measure we are considering today, we have to truly begin to invest in our future and ensure that we not only survive, but that we thrive in the century to come, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves her time. The gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say to my colleague from New York that I think the American people are beginning to realize that government spends money, it doesn't invest money, and with that I'll reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves her time. The gentlelady from New York.
I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, a member of the Committee on Rules, Mr. McGovern.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank my ranking member for yielding to me. Mr. Speaker, there are some good things in this minibus. I'm especially pleased with the funding levels for the SNAP and WIC programs, which will ensure that hungry people have access to nutritious food during these tough economic times. And I regret very much that those programs were under attack by the Republican majority in this House, but in this minibus those levels are adequate. And I'll likely support the final passage of this bill. But, Mr. Speaker, for the life of me, I can't understand why policy riders were allowed to be included in the final bill. Some were even airdropped in the dark of night without being considered by either the House or the Senate. Most troubling, the underlying bill includes a special carve-out for Maine and Vermont to allow 100,000-pound trucks on their interstate highways for the next 20 years. Mr. Speaker, current law allows only trucks up to 80,000 pounds to travel on interstate, and for good reason. Bigger, heavier trucks are an enormous safety threat. Oversized rigs are more likely to be involved in crashes, not to mention that it's unnerving to see one in your rearview mirror bearing down on you on the highway. And if the safety risks are not convincing enough as to why heavier trucks are a bad idea, consider the economic arguments. I mean, we're here talking about deficit reduction, and already bigger trucks don't pay their fair share for the damage that they incur on our roads and our bridges. An 80,000-pound truck only pays 80% of its damage costs, and a 97,000-pound truck would pay only half of the damage it causes. Our nation's infrastructure is crumbling, and the Highway Trust Fund is woefully underfunded. Where are we going to get this money to repair our infrastructure? And the Maine and the Vermont exemptions will only make this problem worse. And it also starts us down a slippery slope of allowing other states to ask for special weight limit exemptions. We'll end up with a patchwork of truck size and truck weight laws that will make the business of transporting goods by truck across state lines a confusing mess. Mr. Speaker, there were no hearings, none, zero, no hearings held in the House on the Maine and Vermont exemption. The House didn't even consider a transportation appropriations bill. So to be making such a major policy change without thoughtful and vigorous debate is absurd. And I remind my colleagues that there's bipartisan opposition to increasing truck size and truck weight. I have a bill to freeze truck size and truck weights at 80,000 pounds across the entire national highway system, and it has 60 bipartisan co-sponsors. The issue of increasing truck size and weights needs to be fully understood and debated before making any long-term policy changes. I strongly oppose the Maine and Vermont policy rider in this appropriations bill, and I regret very, very much that this was included without the appropriate hearings, without the appropriate oversight, without doing it out in the open so people can understand what the policy implications are by making this exemption. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll reserve my time.
Gentlelady reserves her time. The gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Colorado, a member of the Committee on Rules, Mr. Polis.
Gentleman from Colorado is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady from New York. Mr. Speaker, I have to voice my opposition to an insidious provision that has been added to this bill at the last minute by agribusiness and the frozen food industry, and that is a change that allows pizza to be counted as a vegetable. They started with French fries, now they've moved on to pizza. This language equates pizza with vegetables and weakens otherwise good school nutrition standards. This false equivalency harkens back to the ludicrous labeling of ketchup as a vegetable, made infamous 30 years ago by President Ronald Reagan. Again, this bill's actual language requires crediting of tomato paste. Again, crediting of tomato paste from page 90 of this bill as a vegetable under the school lunch program to be subsidized by taxpayers as a vegetable. Why had a family from my district, from Eagle County, Colorado, my office earlier this morning, I asked the mom, I said, when your kid is eating, do you count pizza as his vegetable? And she said no, and parents across the nation agree. Pizza can be incorporated into a healthy diet. I eat pizza. Most of my constituents eat pizza. But when we're talking about taxpayer subsidies for healthy vegetables to make sure that they're available for kids on the side of pizza, making sure there's some broccoli, making sure there's some spinach, making sure there's something healthy for them to eat at the school lunch counter, pizza alone, particularly pizza with no vegetables on it, just tomato paste, it's common sense. It's not a vegetable. What's next? Are Twinkies going to be considered a vegetable? Rather than having a deliberative effort, we have special interests inserting these provisions into these bills contrary to the public health. And we wonder why Congress is so unpopular nationally. No one can help but to look at us and scratch their heads when we say that French fries count as a healthy, nutritious vegetable, that pizza counts as a healthy, nutritional element. You know, poor children's health is something we all have a stake in. Not only are the kids and the families affected, but we're all affected. The cost of Medicaid, Medicare, government spending, rising obesity rates, the empty calories in French fries are not equal to truly nutritious vegetables like carrots, spinach, lettuce, broccoli, cucumbers. I know it's hard to get kids to eat vegetables. I have a 9-week-old. He hasn't been weaned yet, so we haven't had to deal with that yet. But you know what? You don't define vegetables down. You don't call Twinkie a vegetable. You don't call pizza a vegetable. What you do is you have to make sure that kids know how to incorporate healthy food into their diet so they can grow up strong, keep all of our costs down, and make sure to keep America healthy. Mr. Speaker, this bill has many important provisions, but I feel it's critical to highlight the ludicrous definition that Congress has given by redefining nutrition down and providing taxpayer subsidies for unhealthy food in our schools, and I yield back the balance of my time.
This time has expired. The gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield my such time as I may consume.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, you know, our colleagues across the aisle often try to distract from what are the real issues facing our country and get in the weeds, and bills like this give them a perfect opportunity to do that. But when I'm home every weekend and talk to my constituents, what they're concerned about is they have incredible outrage with the inaction of the liberal Democrat-controlled Senate. My constituents are aware of the many bills that the House has passed but which are stalled in the Senate, and many of these bills which deal directly with promoting jobs, which remains the prevailing issue of so many Americans. Our colleagues are upset about the quality of the free lunches that we provide. Well, we have more people in poverty and getting free lunches because the Democrat-controlled Senate refuses to work with the Republicans in the House to set an environment where more jobs can be created and fewer people would be dependent on food stamps and be dependent on getting free breakfast and free lunches in the schools. My constituents understand the colossal failure of the Obama stimulus bill and the general policies that existed when the Democrats were in control of the House for 4 years. My constituents understand that government can create jobs only for more government bureaucrats, and those bureaucrats must justify their existence by creating more regulations that wind up killing more private sector jobs. The liberal Democrat elites in Washington keep asking for one Republican jobs bill. Well, Mr. Speaker, we've passed at least 20 jobs bills that help the private sector, the only sector of our economy that can actually create real jobs through growth in their businesses. The liberals keep buying into the false theory that government will create millions of jobs. The reality is that unless we provide the private sector with an environment that is conducive to job creation, jobs will be very hard to come by. Mr. Speaker, Republicans have been listening to our constituents, and we're acting to to provide private business owners and entrepreneurs with the tools that they need to create jobs. However, the bills we pass and send over to the Senate just sit there and nothing is done with them, Mr. Speaker. We could reduce the number of children again on free and reduced lunches by creating jobs and getting people out of poverty in this country. That's what we should be focused on right now. We could solve a lot of the problems in this country by doing that. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves her time. The gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to the gentlewoman from Ohio, a member of the Committee on Appropriations, Ms. Kaptur.
Gentlelady from Ohio is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the ranking member, Congresswoman Slaughter, for her incredible work and rise today, Mr. Speaker, to support the rule for fiscal year 2012 appropriations, technically or maybe untechnically called the minibus, and recommend that conferees and completely commend the conferees for including language based on legislation we introduced directing additional resources for the Federal Bureau of Investigation's White-Collar Crime Division for Wall Street financial crime prosecution. With the federal deficit requiring our rigor, this mini-bill makes difficult cuts but also provides support for those most hurt by the current recession. Let me state for the record that the trillions of dollars of deficit being racked up in this country come from some pretty clear sources. First of all, 2 wars, the longest wars in American history lasting over a decade now. Also, the cost of unemployment to this economy caused by Wall Street malfeasance. And finally, looking back, the tax cuts for the rich enacted during the last Bush administration that continue to rack up mounting deficits every year. It's very clear what's happening. And then with the rising deficit, the cost of added interest to the debt. This bill meets the spending cap set in the Budget Control Act compromise and includes a clean continuing resolution to prevent a government shutdown, which would only further harm our economy. With over 15% of Americans living in poverty now, our moral responsibility as a Congress must be to help our fellow citizens weather this storm which they didn't create, and this bill maintains funding for key programs such as for food, for women who are pregnant, for food banks across this country that are strapped. In particular, this bill includes language based on legislation I authored to allow the FBI to hire hundreds of new agents to fully investigate white-collar crime in the financial services sector. People across Ohio, from Toledo to Cleveland, are hurting because of the recklessness of Wall Street. Those who broke the law in order to get rich at the expense of everybody else should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I commend the conferees for including my language to help provide the FBI with the necessary resources to investigate those who are responsible. I urge my colleagues to support the rule and the underlying bill, which is quite balanced despite the very difficult choices that they had, and I yield back the balance of my remaining time.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentlelady from North Carolina.
Mr. Speaker, I'll reserve.
Gentlelady reserves her time. The gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee.
Gentlelady from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman. I thank the gentlelady from New York for her kindness in yielding. I thank the hard work of the Appropriations Committee. I thank the gentlelady for Virginia for managing, and I thank Mr. Dix as well for accepting the challenge in these very difficult times. It's not a happy time to come to the floor and indicate that this is what we have to do. But it's important to acknowledge some challenges that we still have. And those challenges are the many food programs that have to be capped in spite of the numbers of people who are hungry in this country. The dumbing down of food resources, in particular, as my colleague from Colorado mentioned, listing tomato paste and tomatoes as vegetables. And then an issue that I hope that I'll be able to continue to work on with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and that is food deserts, where there are pockets in rural and urban centers where we have no food access, good healthy food, vegetables. But I am glad that the new starts under the transportation bill includes the north and southeast lines for the city of Houston, creating jobs, putting people to work, and improving mobility, some $94,616,000. I am also delighted that Tiger grants are in at $500 million, but disappointed in the community planning that we have lost some $830 million for community block grants, $6 billion below the president. That's where we help rebuild communities and jobs. The Legal Services Corporation that I've been a supporter of and actively was on our local board's board of director now has been reduced by $348 million, but it has been reduced, which creates what we call the justice gap. I also am concerned about providing more developmental training for our law enforcement that cover our federal sectors. In particular, I am concerned about the police in the Supreme Court and the chief of police there, and the concern for the lack of professionalism and the need for training. I believe that in the Capitol Police scenario, there is an orderly process of the chief, the sergeant of arms, and we work wonderfully together with these outstanding men and women. It's a shame for those who have to protect the other body of government, the Supreme Court, to have individuals who do not recognize IDs, are not professional in their handling of their business, and I will be raising this issue with the Department of Justice and relating it to the funding, which I think is necessary to either provide them with more funding or to put more stringent guidelines in their hiring policies and the way they train people. So I rise today to say that I am glad that we will have the government open and that we have funded agricultural programs, not at the best. We funded infrastructure, but we can do more. And I believe we should not adhere to any cuts going forward, and I hope the subcommittee will not do that, and I yield back my time. I ask for support of the
the gentlelady from North Carolina.